So, there's an allied question along with this, that you've spent 4 decades, more than 4 decades, in fact, in the US. So, are there any sort of key things about Americans that you want to share, more in addition to what you just said?
Yeah.
Especially in the ease of doing business, understanding them?
Yeah, I think one of the important things is their history of immigrants and each negotiating their place as a hyphenated identity. Irish American,
Italian American,
Jewish American, Hispanic American, Black American, Chinese American, and now Indian American. I've studied this very systematically, very clinically, taken a lot of courses, delivered lectures, written about it, discussed.
Spoken to people.
With many different hyphenated groups to understand their history and how they negotiated. It's a very clear process which Indians must learn to go through. And Indians are a little confused because we don't come with that strong identity. It's, other than the pop culture. So that's the formation of American identities. And it's a there is the Irish Day Parade, there is the Japanese Day Parade, India Day Parade, Pakistan Day Parade, Chinese Day Parade. There's all these, about 50 ethnicities that have annual parades in central New York City, and everybody celebrates, and the mayor comes and all that stuff. That's a sort of a showcase in one city of what the nation is all about. So the celebration of your hyphenated identity is strong. It's not going away. And to become fully American, you don't have to stop being an Indian. This is very different than maybe in European countries where perhaps it's not as easy to assert your separate identity. And this is why Muslims it's not as difficult in the US until these recent problems have happened.
After 9/11.
As it has been in European countries. Because the ability to negotiate your hyphenated, what does this hyphen consist of, how Indian am I, and how do I Indianize America? What do I bring to the American tapestry about India and say, this is now American, I'm bringing this to you. I mean, there's yoga, there's all kind of things that they really like. And this is all negotiated. So you retain who you are, and you also become fully American without having to compromise your distinctiveness. It's a very interesting American phenomenon. I don't know if this exists elsewhere.
Right.
So this is a part of the whole thing.
So, what also interests me is our response, we in India, our response to America, and how I think we refuse to update ourselves at a deeper cultural level. For instance, popular culture is all fine, like you said, but we never look at, say, the evidences contained in literature. Serious fiction exposes the underbellies, the various fault lines within America, and it exists. A lot of fiction which talks about the Indian underbelly is championed in the West, it wins awards, it's written about, whereas we never seem to be able to do the opposite.
Well, one of my pet peeves is how our literary festivals are really run by foreigners, or Indians who got a foreign lens, with authors based on who will be appealing to those guys, to the rest. I don't know any other place which is like that. I don't think the Chinese are that interested in what is the bestseller in the United States, nor do I think the Americans would be very impressed if some Chinese guys or Russian guys were running the literary festivals. So we have this issue with media. Most of these Barkha Dutt and Rajdeep Sardesai, these kind of people, they all got degrees from Columbia School of Journalism and so on. They're great schools, but it has influenced their lens. It has influenced their way of looking. I think in that sense, the Indian language journalists are more authentically Indian. So this English language has also penetrated the style of thinking. And so we are studied from the outside. The most prestigious place to get a degree in Sanskrit is not any Indian place. It's a toss-up between Harvard, Chicago, Columbia, maybe Oxford, Heidelberg, these kind of few places. If you go to Banaras Hindu University, you go to Karnataka Sanskrit University, very traditional. You go to the top universities, Sanskrit universities in Chennai. I've been doing that tour. You go to Delhi University Sanskrit. You ask the young people, where would you rather get a degree? They all tell you they'd rather get the degree there. And where do you publish your paper to be known? You publish in one of those journals. and which is
And obviously then you write it in English.
You write, no, right, and you also submit to what will be accepted. The referees will keep rejecting. In fact, 2 or 3 people in my talks, in the talks I've been having, 2 or 3 of the panelists gave their experiences, that they had a certain interpretation, that's the traditional interpretation, it would keep getting rejected, and to be allowed to speak at an international conference, they had to settle for something that the other guys would accept. So I don't know any other civilization whose study as a civilization is driven from the outside. This is a very peculiar Indian phenomenon.
And
Chinese control all the China studies journals. They are run out of China. The peers and the experts, the editorial people, they're all Chinese people. So the Westerners who want to become credentialed in China studies in Princeton or Harvard or wherever, they have to make sure they're in the good books, the Chinese, not the other way around. And similarly for Japan, similarly for Korea, similarly for Russia, those countries treasure their civilizational study as a big asset, as a national asset. They have to control. We haven't controlled the brand
We haven't
India.
been able to.